let's now take you to the Information Ministry, because Minister of Education Matthew Opoku-Prempeh is taking his turn at the Meet the Press series this morning. Now he's talking about the double-track system to be introduced under the Free Senior High School program.
SHS enrollment trends. See, from 2013, when we have 391,000 students registering for PEC, up to 2017, when we have 468,000 students registering BEC. The third column shows the number placed. That means after those who have registered sat the exams, those who were qualified to be placed in senior high school is the third column. And you realize that of 391,000 in 2013, 352,000 qualified to be placed in senior high schools. But of that number, how many actually went to senior high school? And you realize that of the 352,000 qualified, only 261,000 went to senior high school, meaning the wasted talent was over 90,000 Ghanaian students in 2013. This wasted talent continued to 2016, where the wasted talent had amounted to nearly 111,000 Ghanaian students. Between 2013 and 2016, nearly 28% of all those who qualified to go have senior high school education were not able to go. I must admit, out of this number, some went to private schools, some went to vocations and other things. But really, of the 352,000, only 261 went. In 2016, of the 420,000 who were qualified to go, only 308,000 went, an average of 28%. That means for every 100 Ghanaian students between 2013 and 2016 that qualified for senior high school education, 28 were not able to make it. In 2017, at the onset of the free senior high school, 468,000 Ghanaians registered for BEC. 420. At the end of the placement, 62,000 could still not enroll. 28 to about 14.7, meaning the senior high school has done something. It has enabled more Ghanaian students to take up secondary education than what the trend has suggested. Next slide. In this country, there are certain people or certain parts of this country or certain historical antecedents that ensured that if you're of a northern descent or northern extraction, government gave you a scholarship called feeding grants. Not all the fees of the school, your school fees were paid, but the bursary constituted what we call feeding grants. Feeding grants historically have been about 50% of the senior high school fees. So where there were northern scholarships, we realized that between 2013 and 2016, in 2013, 109,000, that's a subset of the total number I gave, 109,000 that qualified, that registered for BEC, 98,000 qualified. Out of that 98,000, 81,000 went to school, dropping the enrollment percentage to less than 16%, or only 16% didn't go. This was a trend that we had seen. Averagely, for every 100 students that qualified, I talked about national average being 28. For every 100 students that qualified, because of basically only feeding grants, only 11 could not go to school. The national average was 28. Where there was a feeding grant, it was 11. Next slide. In the southern part of this country, or for Southerners, who didn't qualify for the grants, we realized that the trend showed that for every 100 that qualified, 35 could not go to school. So it was 11 if you have a northern extraction, it was a 35 if you are everywhere else, and the average was about 28. This is one of the key drivers about our free SHS and the ability of the government, support of the government, and the commitment of government to pursue this free high school policy. Next slide. This is showing the BEC registration trends. Between 2013 and 2017, it grew just averagely about 2%. If you realize, between 2017 and 2018, the BEC registration grew by nearly 12%. Why? Because the free SHS, if you don't write that year's BEC, you don't qualify. And in 2015, President John Dramani Mahama granted private candidates writing BEC again. So those two things have conspired, and the free SHS and the attraction of it has conspired to balloon registration. We got this number, 521 number, just around June this year after the BEC registrations were complete. A 12% jump. Next slide. So we decided then to make our projections using the same failure rates that historically has existed between 2013 and 2016. If 521,000 people have registered, considering the same failure rate of between 8 and 10%, that means we expect 490,000 students, or 490,000 plus, to qualify. If this year, 95% of all those who qualify take up the place, it means 472,000 vacancies or students will be banging on the doors of senior high school. Last year was a record number, 361,000. This year, it is more than breaking last year's record. And we can understand where the opportunity has been created, a lot more students would want to go to school. So we are working with a projected figure of 472,000 Ghanaian students taking up those places that government offers them. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. On the screens, you find the SHS enrollment between 2014 and 2018. Like I said, we've moved from 271,000 or 273,000 to 2017, where we had 361,000, up to a projected figure of 472,000, a 31% jump on last year. That is a huge number. I'm not sure even forecasters will be able to forecast a 30% jump in 1 year of SHS places. It means that we should start thinking what we have to do, exactly what the ministry has done. Next slide. So we looked, in our planning for this year, we looked at all those in SHS 3 who sat the exams and have left the schools. And there were 277,000. So it means that if we don't want to cause overcrowding and congestion in the schools, we can only admit 277,000 students. If during the year we have absorbed more schools, we have completed and made operational more E-blocks, how many seats have we created? We found out that in 2018, we have created and absorbed, or we have created 13,200 new seats. This is made up of a combination of private schools that we have absorbed, and I mean private schools that we have absorbed, new E-blocks that we have completed, and ongoing GET Fund projects that have added more seats in the various schools, 13,000. If you add the 13,000 to the 277,000 that sat the exams and have left the schools, the total number of seats available for those coming in are 290,000. Meanwhile, our projection is for 472,000 students. Even the 290,000 is far, far less than last year's 361. So we looked at the gap, and this is what we are dealing with, a gap of 181,993 Ghanaian children qualified to go to senior high school. And I ask myself, what do we do about this gap? Whereas some have suggested that we introduce an artificial thing called cut-off point so that it becomes pass no way. Or we face the realities and find out that Ghana is not the first country in the world that this has happened. What did others do? And can we copy from them? The theme, no qualified Ghanaian child left behind. And we have 181,993 students potentially that we are going to exclude. Next slide. So we looked at building to cater for them. If we are going to build to cater for them, for the 181,993, we need to construct 622 classroom blocks, fit those classroom blocks with monodesks, teachers' furniture, build dormitories to commensurate the number, and put in bunk beds into those schools. We did the sum based upon the 2017 or 2018 pricing, and we realized that we needed 1 billion Ghana cedis to put them. Between June and September, when these facts became clear, we realized that even if we had 1 billion cedis, there is no way we can construct 622 classroom blocks and fit it for occupation before the middle of September. So it means that we have to start thinking. Time is not on our side. Next slide. So we looked at our options, and we engaged cabinet with our options. Our options were that, yes, our development partners have promised to support us because we have started free SHS. Some say they will come with money, 250 million. Some say they'll come and support us, like the Saudi fund. They'll come and help us construct 42 model schools. Some say they will support SHS construction, like the Kuwaiti fund, the World Bank additional financing. But between the promises and the delivery is an average of about 30 months. And we are still waiting and working through the Ministry of Finance with our development partners. Then we came up with the idea, why don't we, like some good countries do, the urgency is now. Why don't we raise bonds or borrow money against GEF fund, construct those things and put the students in? And pay over time, because the issue is that the students have to go to school now. They cannot wait. Your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter cannot be the one to wait till we finish building before he accesses education. So our thought process took us to two things: that we should change our calendar, but not the contact hours. We should change the school calendar for 3 terms to a semester system that the universities operate, and increase the number of hours a student spends in a class a day, and hopefully we can make up the time, and then we can do basically a double intake. The school, if it's supposed to take 400 students, then we can do 800 and stagger the periods the children go to school. Because during vacations, the school classes are virtually empty. And if you have 2 children and you are told that one can go to school, but one cannot have access because there's no space, but bring that one who cannot have access back to school during vacations, I'm not sure there's a single parent in this country who would say, because it's vacation, I'll let my child go to school. I'd rather let my child wait at home. So we went to cabinet and suggested to cabinet that we may have to change the school term, and then we may have to introduce basically what we call an all-year-round school. A school where people go at different times but achieve the same thing. That is what we labeled in this country double track. Different countries call it different names. Some call it all-year-round school. Some call it a multi-track calendar. Some call it something else. We in Ghana have called it a double-track school. This, in Ghana, secondary education is boarding education. Everybody who's gone to secondary school virtually has gone through a boarding education. The rates of boarding education are very high. So when people suggest that then allow us to go to boardings, a day school, I always say, look around the country. Most of the schools that our Ghanaian kids want to go to are not evenly distributed in this country. There are regions and huge areas of Ghana where most children in those areas don't even want to go to school in those areas. So let us bring a system that everybody would have access to the schools that are available. And that is what led us to the double track. Simply put, the school calendar is arranged such that different students, group of students will go to school at different times of the year and have their holidays at different times of the year, albeit only the Form 1 students. Next. The Ghana Education Service, from the beginning of the 2018-2019 academic year, would introduce the semester system in all senior high schools. From this year going, the semester system of 2 semesters in a year will be what will be functional in this country. Next slide. But the double track school would only affect SHS1s this year. And it will only be in selected senior high schools. Our mathematics puts it around 400 schools out of the 696 schools. So it's not every school that will be on double track, but every school will run the semester system. The double track is to enable us create room in the schools for the perceived or the projected increased enrollment. Within the school, it will reduce class sizes, it will increase contact hours, and it will increase the number of days for staff, holidays, and students. Next slide. So I want to repeat, the double track calendar we are adopting is a temporary intervention until we can build enough classroom blocks and enough accommodation, enough dormitories to satisfy the Ghanaian child. Not all senior high schools will be on the double track calendar. 400 out of our 696. Please, this is a temporary measure to build ourselves out of the problem. The options we took to Cabinet, that Cabinet approved, is what I've discussed. And Cabinet has approved the securitization of GET Fund to raise up to $1.5 billion to complete all uncompleted GET Fund projects, pay debts of GET Fund, and make sure that we have enough places for every Ghanaian child that wants to go to secondary school. The country has committed itself to SDG Goal 4. And in SDG Goal 4, by 2030, there's a right of every child to secondary education. Please, don't let us get involved in the issue that some students are not fit for secondary education. Everybody is fit for secondary education. In some countries, if you don't attain the age of 18, you cannot get into university. And you cannot get any work to do. So let us know that the more educated our kids are, the better it is for the socio-economic development of the country. The double track is a temporary intervention to solve an acute problem, to make sure that no qualified Ghanaian child is left behind. The government is open to the suggestion that anybody who has a better suggestion of how we cater for the 181,993 kids, government is still open to that suggestion. But so far, so up to now, it is a double track that we think can cater for all those students to get to school. Next slide. Like I said, a double track is an intervention that allows schools to accommodate more students within the same facility and is often motivated by its potential to reduce overcrowding as well as to save costs relatively to new school constructions. Like I said, if we want to build our way, just the buildings will cost 1 billion Ghana cedis. And if we had the 1 billion, we will not be able to build to fulfill that within the next academic year. Next slide. So we're going through a school with a capacity of 3,000, where every level 1, level 2, level 3, have 1,000 students. That is the school's maximum capacity. If you add one child to this school, it means that the school is congested, overcrowded. But now we are saying that first years, we have what we call double intake. So first years, we are increasing the number of students in this first years from 1,000 to 1,500. Potentially, we've caused serious overcrowding in that school. How then do we say a double track would reduce class sizes and will decrease congestion? Next slide. If you follow me carefully, next slide. We'll demonstrate. Next slide. We're going to demonstrate in a 365-day school that we are trying to do what is going to happen. First, we are going to have first semesters and second semester. Senior high school, SHS3, will do 2 semesters, first semester and second semester. Note, the SHS3 students are 1,000. I want to demonstrate purely that at no time t would the school even have 3,000 students. So the first semester and second semester, SHS3, the first group will come in. They will have a semester is 81 teaching days, 112 school days, but it's 81 teaching days. So after 81 teaching days, they will go on vacation, and they will come back and finish the second semester. The SHS2 would come in. First semester, 81 days, go on vacation with the third years, and then come back semester and go on vacation. The SHS1, that are 1,005, we will split them into 2. 750 will come as the first group track, we call it track green. The track green will come for 41 days and have a break. Then when they have a break, the track gold will come to school and they will do 81 days stretch. If you look on the slide, by the time the track gold does the half of the semester, the track red, which is SHS3, and track blue, which is SHS2, will be on vacation. And then track green will come back to school and complete. They'll complete the same day as with their fellows in track gold. Let's check. When the first semester began, there was track red, 81,000 students. Track blue, 81 days, 1,000 students, making it 2,000. The school has a capacity of 3,000. But how many Form 1 students have we put there? 750. So the school is nowhere near its carrying capacity. And that is what we are calling to reduce class sizes. So even if there are more Form 2 students, there is still room for them to go into other classrooms to have their studies. And when the latter half, when the final year, first year students go on the latter half of their 81 days, you realize that actually in the school, there will be only first years that will be there. And there are only 1,500. And the school has a capacity of 3,000. So no matter how you look at it, at any time t, the school's carrying capacity is not breached, and you continue to have enhanced teaching and learning in the various schools. This will continue to the second semester, where track green will continue the next 41 days. Track gold will be on holiday, so you have red, blue, and green. And when green goes on holiday, gold comes for the next 81 days, and green comes to continue. And you look at the timetable, you look at the track green and track gold, and it's an all-year school from day 1 to day 365 where they are continued. And that is why we call, in certain areas, it's called all-year-round school. So we make use, in a staggered manner, the holidays to cater for more students in class. And it's true. It's true. Because we are doing this, facilities of the school is going to be used more. But hey, in our houses that we live in, we don't sleep outside our beds for some number of days because of wear and tear. We still sleep on our beds 365 days of the year. So it's up to government to make the resources available for maintenance of these facilities. Next slide, please. These are the essential features of the school calendar we're talking about. If you look at the single track,
You're still watching JoyNews Desk with me, Bernice Abubedu. Education Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh there, bringing us some details of the double track system government is introducing under the Free Senior High School policy. Some points worthy of re-echoing is that every school will run the semester system, but only 400 schools will be running the double track calendar system. And just before that short break, he was explaining what that particular double track system really looks like, giving details, using a school with a sample size of 3,000. And also was just about explaining the essential features of the school calendar. So breaks it down basically for us. The teaching hours per year will be 1,080. That's for the single track calendar school, but if you compare it to the double track school calendar, that it will be 1,134 hours per year. That's to support the argument that with the double track school calendar, you have more teaching hours. And the length of school days, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., but for the double track school calendar, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and also longer hours. And teaching days 180, but for the double track is 162. The argument is that the number of hours per year would cater for that number of days difference between the single track school and the double track. Let's take you back to the Information Ministry to hear the Education Minister.
Of their curriculum. This year, after talking with West Africa Exams Council, we have pushed it to April. Next year, they promised us they are going to put it in June to make sure that the students have the benefit of the full curricula before. But when we go to the semester, between first term and second term, we have the privilege of bringing the kids 1 month to school ahead of time so they can complete their curriculum, even before they start the exams, which intervention government is going to exercise on behalf of the third-year students so that they don't miss much of their academic year. And even if we do that, still the school will not be congested. It will have only 2,500 students in the school. So, seeing that the same teacher could not be on track green and track gold, government has taken the steps and is working with the schools to see on their timetables how many extra teachers every secondary school needs. And that is why government, by our calculation, you go back to that original slide. By our calculation, we said we need 8,872 teachers. These teachers will be gainfully employed, not short-term. They will be employed, and it will be increasing the number of students, teachers in the school. The cost is what we have analyzed to mean if you employ a graduate teacher, how much you pay, and the total cost is 267 million. It is one of the two interventions that government is going to do because of adoption of the semester system. Next slide. The other intervention is that government is going to provide per head 50 cedis to every student as academic intervention, where the teachers, if they want to have to organize extra lessons in maths and English, they will not charge the students. But government will give them money to be able to pay for those extra students. And then we are saying that Saturdays, if it's not an SDA school, or Sundays, if it's an SDA school, should be declared academic intervention days. so that the teachers can supervise and give extra tutorials or extra classes or a supervised learning environment to kids when they come to school. For those kids who breaks, like the track green, who would break more frequently, we are organizing to extra classes and when they are going home so that they can fulfill it. And we provide centers in the constituencies for them to engage to meet teachers. If you realize, the government has another program called NAPCO that 43,000 registered teachers have applied to educate Ghana. We have enough flexibility to put some of these teachers to help these kids even while at home. And that cost is what we've put up there as 55. Next slide. If we add the teaching cost per year and the academic intervention per year, the government has to find the money, nearly 300 or 400 million, to cater for that. And that cabinet decided that they're going to find the money and wrote to the Ministry of Finance, not only to provide financial clearance, but to make sure that money is found, because government regards education as the bedrock of national development. Besides, the 181,993 students cannot wait. They wait to the detriment of our socioeconomic development. Next slide. So we went through stakeholder conferences or meetings. Really, the stakeholder meetings have enriched our ideas and our thoughts and our suggestions, even to Cabinet. Cabinet has had to take different decisions from what even it did at first. We've met Cabinet twice. We've met regional ministers. We've met eminent educationists in the country. Teacher unions, we've met at least 3 times. The Ministry of Information, National Council for Curriculum and Assessments, Ghana Education Service Council, Ghana Education Service Management Headquarters, GES regional directors, heads of faith-based organizations like AME Zion, Methodist, Islamic Unit, Anglican, Catholics, Salvation Army, EP Church, Catholic Bishops Conference, Ahmadiyya Education Unit, SDA Church, Anglican, Ghana Baptist, CCC, CAC, International. In fact, we met all these church leaders, and some invited us to their General Synod to come and discuss it further with them. Next slide. We met all district directors of education. We met all district PROs of the Ghana Education Service. We met all heads of secondary schools in this country. We met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education and civil society organizations. This was not information meetings. This was serious stakeholder consultations where rich decisions, ideas have been incorporated into our final design. And this calendar that I showed is the final design calendar. So whatever you've had, whatever you've seen, we'll put it on the Ministry of Education website from some time today. Next slide. People have talked about quality, equality, and equity, but we'll just leave it. This government is removing all stumbling blocks to allow a child to go. The argument that the rich people want to pay, allow them to pay, it is true. But I don't know which rich person, since we started the free SHS, has gone to the school and said, my child's school fees was supposed to be 1,000, even though government is doing it for free, get this 1,000 cedis and use it for the general. To me to decide who is rich and who is poor. My main aim is to make sure that no matter the child, that child should not suffer anything that will be a stumbling block. We operated northern feeding grants in this country for nearly 60 years. And we didn't say if you are rich, your child should not get northern feeding grants, or if you are poor, your child should not. We did progressive free education in this country for 2 years. We did not discriminate the rich and poor. This is not the time. When every Ghanaian child is in school, we can have the luxury of deciding who is rich and who is poor and using the discriminatory measures perfectly. Thank you. I'll set for
Education Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh there briefing us, I must say, on this double-track system that will be introduced into senior high schools, or some senior high schools, come September. We've been told now that every school will run the semester calendar, but only 400 will be running the double-track system. He's explained that this is a temporary initiative or measure to deal with the rising numbers in enrollment, and that once you're able to settle issues like availability of classrooms, number of teachers, providing dormitories and other facilities, then we can revert to the single track for all schools. But for now, we know that all schools will be running the semester system. He also says that the ministry has been in talks with WAEC to try and make sure that the examination period is convenient or helps this particular system. We'll be bringing you more, even as questions coming from colleague journalists at that Meet the Press, and definitely there will be a lot of answers. But it's interesting to note that in concluding his presentation, the Minister of Education stated that, generally would have the schools, or generally would have the system running in every student in school, and then the issue of who can afford vice versa will be looked at later when all Ghanaian children would have access to senior high school. He also said the government is committed to meeting SDG 4 by 2020, which states the right of every child to secondary education. In fact, at that point, he was quite emphatic and stern that every child qualifies to go to senior high school. And so basically, that's what we've been picking up from the minister. I must say the new things, or the new information that clarify some of the confusing bits of the system had to do with how many schools will be running the system, and whether it is a permanent or temporary measure to deal with the problem of lack of classrooms and teachers. And he ran us through what they are projecting for 2018 and how it is impossible to meet or provide to meet those numbers, and that's why this system has been adopted. And also with regards to stakeholder consultations, he said Cabinet has met twice over this, met some other stakeholders, including regional directors of education, district directors of education. They've also met some religious leaders, and he was careful to say that this was not a briefing session, it was a stakeholder discussion. We'll be expecting question and answers shortly at that Meet the Press series. Today, we have Minister of Education Matthew Opoku-Prempeh basically explaining to the nation why the government has decided to adopt a double-track system, what it is, and what it is dealing with, likely. So let me just bring you some of the information that the minister gave us, just to rehash, or if you just joined us, just so you can be abreast. We are told that due to the increase in enrollment, we will need about 622 6-unit classroom blocks at the cost of 404,300,000 Ghana cedis. We'll need 181,993 mono desks, and that will cost us 81,896,850 Ghana cedis. There will also be furniture needed for teachers, dormitories, and bunk beds, and also the number of teachers, and that's also been put at the cost of 267,236,989. Grand total is 1,338,083,639 Ghana cedis. Let's quickly move to the next slide and bring you some other details the minister has been sharing. Now, this is the statement boldly written. Even if we have all the funds, we cannot build quick enough for 2018 entrance. And so the proposed options to close the gap is what he's been sharing with us, basically, which includes the double track system. But let's take you back now to the Information Ministry, where the minister is responding to questions.
Maintenance of the school facilities, and that the large numbers of students coming will not have problem, actually. But my question is, we know that in Ghana we have issues with maintenance culture. And so what assurance is coming from the government that, yes, the large numbers are coming, the double track system is supposed to handle that, but is there going to be an assurance that these facilities will be regularly maintained? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anna Mpofu. I work with Accra. During the 2018 budget statement, the finance minister made a statement on education fund. I want to know how far without education fund. And my second question goes to Professor Yanka. There are impending university teachers.
I'm sorry. Just as I reiterated, it's with regards to this presentation and this presentation only. You can meet him outside for it.
Okay. My name is Maxwell. I work with JoyNews. I have two questions. And then my first question is actually directed to the Minister in charge of education. No,
I'd rather you just ask the question. The entire ministry is here, so they can choose who can answer it well.
Okay. So I want to know how we've engaged authorities on the tertiary level for the implementation of this program, because there's something saying.
Unfortunately, that has absolutely nothing to do with the presentation today.
They would graduate to tertiary institutions.
Eventually. For now, we want the Ghanaian population to understand this track system. So please limit your question to today's presentation.
But I'm looking at the future. And that is a way forward. That's the way we can only deal with the situation. Because there are some who say we are only postponing the repercussions of what we are likely to face if we do not roll out this program. It's connected.
It's not connected to the presentation today. Please limit your question to today's presentation.
Okay, I'll move on to my second question.
Thank you.
The second question is from the stakeholder. It says, will the House Masters and Assistant Heads also go on a break with the track 1, or will they stay with the headmaster to take care of track 2? And then if you allow me to ask a third question, it's about the funding.
You mean a second question? Yeah.
Second question.
Go ahead.
The minister mentioned that we did not see a feeders problem, so if he can bring us a feeders for the funding. The funding. The funding for the
currency.
For the double track system. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, my name is Barry Masagwa. I work with Africa TV at FM. And 1,960 students cannot be denied education. That's great. But I have a question.
1,900. 109.
Thank you. With the transformation, digital power, economy, and all these benefits, how is the education sector gearing towards the digital drive? We heard about the digital classroom, which is to pioneer the Ghana to make education material accessible to everyone. How is the ministry going to make sure every student in the country benefit from such initiative? And then lastly, we read part of the digital classroom program. It will offer out of classroom learning to virtual lessons accessible to students while they are at home. Also enable teachers and lectures notes to students all over the country. This sounds fantastic. Is it actually going to be implemented anytime soon as to students? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The first question talked about how did we choose the 400 schools? With the benefit of technology, we have what we call choice files. These files we got from WAEC, and simply put, these are the schools that children have chosen to go. So when you analyze the choice file, you can see that Prempeh College can take only 1,000 students, about 50,000 kids want to go to Prempeh College. And you choose Wesley Girls, can take 450 students, but only 2,000 students want to go to Wesley Girls. And that is how we've compiled the schools. We have a link on our presentation that can take you there. I would want to show the school bill. That the last time that I met press here, we went through the advent of the free SHS, we went through the school bill. And if you look through the school bill, these are one-term items, but go to the recurrent items. In the one-term items, we have maintenance fee, that is small, very small. But go to the next one, that is per child. We have stationary and maintenance of vehicles, we have building maintenance, furniture maintenance, machine maintenance. There are 6 or so different maintenance fees that government pays to the school for maintenance. It is already embedded in the school bill. So that's why I said government will just, Ghana Education Service will just have to make sure that the places are maintained. The Ministry of Finance have not as of yet informed the Ministry of Education how much has accrued to the Volunteer Educational Fund. It may be an index that Ghanaians, even the rich people, are not philanthropic a lot. But I don't know yet. Maybe this year's budget, the Minister of Finance will tell us how much has accrued into the fund. JoyNews. The first question was, your question was you didn't see the funding, or you didn't. Can we go to the funding? Free SHS has been funded out of the general government budget. We've done 1 year. Because when we go to Parliament, government appropriates money. And the free SHS, which is a government scholarship, is under the Scholarship Secretariat of the government. The Scholarship Secretariat of the government resides in the office of the President. So sometime early this year, there was a lot of debate, how come the office of the President's budget has ballooned? And the explanation was that the free SHS that will cost about 1.something billion this year is situated in the government scholarship secretariat. So government will continue fund. It's a prioritization. If you're in your house with your wife and your children, you decide as the father what to use your money for. Some father has decided that he wants every kid educated. Some will say, my last boy, it's the choice for the parents. The choice of this government has to be educated populace, making sure every Ghanaian is well educated to fulfill the socio-economic growth potential of this country. So it's going to be funded out of government budget. No donor has put any money, as far as I'm concerned, directly into the free SHS funding for this year. Also, I showed 2 interventions. What it is going to cost us to do the free SHS this year will be the teachers we have to recruit, the 8,000 teachers, which we gave a figure of 267 million Ghana cedis, because teachers are paid. We even put up the monthly, the yearly salary on the slide. And then the academic intervention, we talked about 50 cedis per head per child. And the number of children are 1.1 million, 1.196 something. And it came up to 55 million. And those are the figures that we put up there. Yes, when you critically examine NACA directive as to how many hours a teacher should teach, how many hours a headmaster should teach, how many hours an assistant headmaster should teach, how many hours a housemaster should teach, that time has been chosen because they know that there are extra things headmasters and headmistresses and things do. So next slide, after this one, next one. So, go. No, show where the headmistress and the teachers are. Yes, so you see, if you look on your table, a subject teacher should teach a minimum of 18 hours, a maximum of 22 hours. Heads of department should teach 12 hours, a maximum of 16. Why the differences? The difference is the extra duties that are being given. So not all teachers or heads or counselors or things will teach the same number of hours. The next question had to do with digital literacy. The next question from Atinka TV and Atinka FM had to do with digital literacy. In the MPP manifesto, it talked about making sure that every secondary school has at least Wi-Fi links before you can even think about digital literacy. If you don't have a road to your village and you buy a car, the car literally cannot get to your village. And in this area of digital literacy, you first need to create the infrastructure upon which you can deliver content. And that is what we are focusing on. Professor Yanka, Professor Dr. Duchum have been putting in extra hours to get the investors or the resources capable to make sure that every secondary school and every university, the universities already have it, every secondary school has a Wi-Fi link. If we don't, and we run, what we are going to find is what is even more dangerous, called digital divide. And it's something that we can talk about later. So government is trying to make sure that at least if there's Wi-Fi in every school, there's connectivity in every secondary school. Already we have a program called iBoxes. On the iBoxes, which are offline, online tool, we have all the content with teachers giving lectures, laboratories, virtual laboratory, and every student can interact with the box within a certain radius independently. And we can also monitor what we are doing on the plan and offer you intervention if necessary. So the government is building the blocks to enable Ghana to become digitally literate. But in our quest to run, we should make sure we carry remote areas without the Wi-Fi or internet connectivity. Thank you.
This is our extended version of News Desk, giving us that Minister of Education briefs or explains to the nation what exactly this double track system the government is introducing is all about. We'll be taking the next batch of question and answers shortly. But let me just brief you on what the minister has been saying. So for some important points, that every school will run the semester system, but only 400 of them will be running the double track system. And he also mentioned that Cabinet has approved the securitization of Get Fund, and the government is committed to meeting SDG 4 by 2030, which states that the right of every child to secondary education should be ensured or guaranteed. All right, and he's been also explaining to us why this particular double track system had to be adopted, mentioning that it is a temporary intervention until the gap which has been costed will be catered for, and that gap is as a result of the number of students enrolling. And he showed us the trend over the years. We've seen more, students moving, or pupils moving from basic education level, that's at the junior high school level, to the senior high school level. And we're told that the total additional funds needed is about 323,061,739 Ghana cedis. And we've also been told that The cost per student for senior high school will be 50 Ghana cedis, and we are told that this to cater for additional teaching and learning for English and mathematics, and so cater for about 1 million students. Then it will cost about 55 million, I beg your pardon, 824,750 Ghana cedis. Let's take you back to the Information Ministry for the next batch of questions and answers.
Parents pay for their children's school fees at the first SHS level. Can we end the debate by setting up a fund for rich parents to donate so that at the end of the quarter, we see how much rich parents have contributed to the fund. We know how much it has, how many children it has taken care of, so that we know that indeed people who are rich out there are willing to pay for their children, so that we know how much they pay at the end of the semester or a term, how much that fund they contributed pay for how many students actually, so we know for the debate to end, because everything we hear rich parents can pay. So let's know that indeed they can pay by setting up a fund. Maybe to be called a rich parents support fund for free SHS. Thank you.
Nice, thank you.
My name is from the minister's presentation, we know that 15 private schools have been absorbed. That leaves over 200 of them. And they have expressed their willingness to partner government, roll out the double track system and the free SHS. I just want to find out from the minister if there are any arrangement for these private schools, considering their support over the years.
Thank you.
During the presentation, the Honourable Minister mentioned recruitment process of 8,872 new teachers. Now, my question is, these are coming to add to what we already have. In terms of headmasters, senior house masters, and house masters in the school, we wanted to find out what happened to these category of teachers. Are they also going to be part of the tracking system, or they will be permanent?
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alamo. I work for the WordPress and various areas. I have two questions. One, we all know that through the ship systems some time ago, children were playing truancy. How they guarantee that when we do this double track system, those who are in the morning will say we are helping. Those who are in the morning say we are in the morning. Please, let me ask my question, please. Because they will come home anyway. So when they come home, the parents can they track their children? Because even when they are in boarding school, they don't exact and do all sorts of things. I understand, I have been a student because there's a lot of people. So measures are put in place to check these truancy. Fine. My second question is, you did say that as a result of some problems, some students were left out. The government also absorbed all of them into certain schools. Fair enough. So when we try to solve that problem, and then we get more students coming from the SHS who don't have the technical skills and don't get admission to anywhere, what happens to them?
If I heard you right, you said that the double track system is for some selected senior high schools. And you said that, if I heard you right, GS will introduce the two semester 2018-2019 academic year. If it's for selected, some selected senior high schools, why is all the senior high school, why are all the senior high schools going to be introducing
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start from my sister's question. The policy was that SHS is going to be semester going forward. That is the first policy. That all SHSs from henceforth, even when we build all the classroom blocks going forward, SHS will be semester system. Yes, 400 schools, I think I answered it. 400 out of the 696 schools are going to be on the double track. But you can be sure that next year it might not be 400, it might be 300, because we would have built some infrastructure. And as we build the infrastructure and the candidates are in that school are not exceeding what the school can, we don't need to put them on double track. That is why one of the pillars, my Abuchi, my friend, said that we have done 3 press conferences and there are about 2 more on the way before the year ends. One is to come and discuss with you government efforts towards vocational and technical education. But we have to understand that all technical schools in this country, or technical institutes, and secondary technicals that offer a bit of technical in the normal secondary schools are part of secondary education in this country. So whether it's Accra Technical Institute, Cape Coast Technical Institute, Tamale Technical Institute, Koforidua Technical Institute, Kumasi Technical Institute, are all secondary schools that students go there for technical education. It's to up the ante in vocational and technical education that when I do that press conference, we will tell you government's efforts and the different resources government is putting in, from the technical institutes to the vocational NVTIs to the technical universities and the polytechnics. I can tell you and I can assure you that in all those levels, government is doing something seriously about it. We've contracted a loan of 120 million USD for improvement in the 10 technical universities and 13 technical institutes. We are the 3rd phase, an Austrian grant, going to do 4 technical institutes. The Ministry of Finance has just approved a loan facility to upgrade all the 35 national vocational technical training institutes, as well as the 3 OICs and the NVTI headquarters, building 2 foundries and 2 machine tool industry makers. So government's agenda on technical and vocational institute will be revealed very soon at a press conference here. When I showed the teaching hours between headmasters and housemasters, they are different. And because they are managers, the expectation on the housemaster is different from the expectation on a subject teacher. The double track is to make sure a subject teacher does not overlap. So if the housemaster or the senior housemaster or the assistant headmaster, he cannot be on 2 tracks. Because if he goes on 2 track, he cannot take his normal leave. So if he is teaching, he will teach on 1 track. And on that track, he cannot go more than the hours that have been stipulated, so that the other hours can go for his functions. A headmaster is not on any track. And the headmaster doesn't teach. He has 0 teaching hours. Unless the school is really short, that's how headmasters have decided to teach. Headmasters don't teach. Even, I just found out that some assistant headmasters don't teach, which is not the norm, but some don't teach. So if you don't teach, you cannot be on a track. So the management position and the management functions are very different from the teaching functions. Daily guide, you said 8,872 new teachers. What was the question? Daily guide. Yes. Yes, that is the first word. So the double track system would end as soon as we have enough infrastructure to cater for all 600,000 plus students who go to class 1. You know, the SDG Goal 4 talks about right to secondary education. And when you have a right, You don't put a barrier within it. So just like previously we had common entrance, if you didn't pass common entrance, that was the end of you, and it was at the age 11. If you didn't pass common entrance, there was no future. So a sizable number of pupils were shoved aside because they didn't pass common entrance. Now, the minimum position is BECE, age 14 or 15. All the kids go up to BECE. It's only when you don't pass BECE that you are shoved aside. Very soon, there will be no shoving aside at BECE. Everybody will go up to SSS. And we have to create, if you look at the number of people who are normally in class 1, it's about 600,000. And we have to create up to 1.8 million spaces at the secondary level, but that includes technical and vocational as well, so that every child will have a place. If every child has no place, it becomes access problems, a barrier. That's what we want to do. Rich Parent Fund, Poor Parent Support. Government, I said, government has operated for 60 years, Northern Feeding Grants. Are we saying there were no rich people from the North? No, there were. But government was removing a systematic barrier, or a systemic barrier. So did not use any means targeting to say you are from this north, but you have 1,000 cattle, so you are rich. We didn't do that. 60 years. Even recently, when we introduced the progressively free SHS, there was no means target. We didn't say if you are rich, you don't qualify. Because data acquisition in this country is very difficult. And if you are not careful, in your bid to chase the rich to pay, you'll be excluding the poor. So bring everybody in first, create the access for everybody, and start removing the other things that you can deal with. So the Ministry of Finance, I said, set up a volunteer fund, even though they didn't call it what you said, a rich man's fund. I said this year, when the Minister of Finance comes to Parliament, he may tell us how many people have contributed into this fund. But so far, Ghana Education Service hasn't told me of one parent who deems himself rich, said that he has been able to go to the school and said, my child's fees were supposed to be 1,000, the school will take it for development purposes. I haven't heard that. That would be another way of saying that the rich should contribute to the development of the schools. There's this question about private schools. Apart from a school that is publicly granted or chartered or built, the Ghana government has built 150 e-blocks. Every other school can be considered one way or the other a private school, whether it's a community that built it or the church that built it. But we know that even when church is built, they come to government to absorb the schools, because maintaining a school is not that easy. So why do they come? They come because they have to pay teachers. And it is not easy. So they come to government and say, government, after they've established the school for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, absorb our schools. Because we can't pay the teachers, it is difficult running. And this cuts across primary, secondary, even teacher training colleges. As we speak, there are applications on my table for government to absorb 2 teacher training colleges. Within the last 3 years, government have absorbed 7 teacher training colleges. Why? They were private, but why? It is difficult to maintain, so they come to government. So the schools that come, they come with different level of infrastructure needs. So that is why Ghana Education Service has a committee that goes to assess those schools that even come and knock on their doors to absorb. Because it's not simple absorption that go and take. It means government should have a capital outlay in making sure that the teachers there are qualified. Government cannot send public students to places where the teachers are unqualified. It means that government should have budget to absorb those teachers or to make sure they can post teachers to those places. And after that, government should operationalize the school. If in this month you build a fantastically brand new school for me and you say, government, take, I have fully qualified teachers. Government take. It's difficult to operationalize it in that same year's SHS because when the students were choosing the schools, that school was not part of the choice of the students. We don't just send a child to anywhere. The students at BEC level choose the school they want to go to. So if that school is not, last 2 years, we all had some kids on air. I didn't choose the school and I was put there. It is an issue in this country. If a child doesn't choose a school, you cannot force that child into that school. So we work with private schools that we have to absorb. This is not the first time we are absorbing private schools. It has since independence. And private schools that meet the criteria would absorb them, make sure the teachers are qualified, make sure that the environment is safe and secure for teaching and learning, and we'll put in the Ghanaian kids when we have absolutely incorporated them to the choices that the kids have. That is why you might have a complete E-block today, but there's no student in, because it was not available as a choice school when the kids were choosing. And when we make it operational, we'll do that. When you link up on the website, you'll find the 400 schools. You find the 400 schools, and you'll find those kids that have chosen those schools, the capacity of those schools, those students that are going to go to track green, and those students that are going to be track gold. We will publish it. So when this year CSSPS announces and comes up with the results of placements, when a kid goes to print out the placement form, it would indicate the time the kid reports to school. It will indicate whether the child is at track green or track gold. There's no confusion in that. That there's not going to be scramble at the school door of 1,500 students. No. So you would know from day one when you are reporting to school and when you are going to break. As to the issue of truancy, it's a societal thing. It's a societal thing. Where are the parents' responsibility in all this? We have to look at it. The teacher in the school cannot follow your child for 24/7. The parent should also be involved in the education of the child. The system, the semester system, is not a shift system. I explained. It is not a shift system. We don't go to school at 12 and another group comes to school at 2 and we are all going back to our houses. That is the shift system. This is not a shift system. People will not go to school 6 a.m. and sleep and close at 2 a.m. for another group to come at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. and close at 6 p.m. and go and sleep. Because our boarding school, our secondary education in Ghana particularly, is a boarding education. That is why we are running a double track. The universities that we are following into the semester run sandwich courses. And it's simple. When school vacates and the facilities are free, they bring another group of students into the U, increase their contact time, and make sure that what somebody did in one semester, they can accomplish the same thing in probably 8 weeks or 10 weeks. That is another use of the idle facilities. Everywhere, if you just check, universities are now doing spring and fall admissions. They are just staggering the time so that they make use of the facilities that already exist. I think I've answered all the questions.
Thank you, Minister. I think our next one is Angel TV. National Focus. Insight.
Definitely, there are a lot of questions on the minds of people on this double track system being introduced by government. And you just saw a while ago the Minister of Education answering some of those questions. Let me just bring you a recap of some of the notable ones. One had to do with the inclusion of private schools in the double track system. And the Minister's answer had to do with ensuring that those private schools have the quality of teachers needed, and also raised the issue of school selections. He made an argument that senior high school students in Ghana choose the schools that they want to go to, and so it may be difficult to just send students to a school that they did not choose. But he did not dismiss entirely the probability of engaging private schools in this double track system. Just a quick recap of some of the notable things he said since he started addressing the nation. Every school will run a semester system. Every high school in Ghana will run a semester system from September. But 400 schools will be running the double track system until government is able to provide all the needed infrastructure and logistics to meet the rising numbers in enrollment. And he mentioned that double track is a temporary intervention. Government has approved the securitization of GET Fund, and also WAEC has been deeply involved in this double track system to ensure that students do not suffer with regards to examination time periods, and also explained. And in terms of maintenance with the schools, the 400 schools that will be running the double track system, he explained that the fees for maintenance are already embedded in the bills. And so it's up to the GES to ensure that those monies are being used. He was also asked about the education fund to give us some progress report on that. Mentioned the finance ministry has not briefed the education ministry on what they've been able to gather so far. We'll be bringing you a lot more analysis, reactions to what we've heard from the education ministry in subsequent bulletins. But for now, that's all for me, Benes Abubedu, and the team. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Do stay with us here on the Joy News channel.